wonder if everyone else, oh, you know what? It's okay. Can you hear us?
Yes.
Yeah.
All right. For those that are also going to be presenting, if you need to use the mic, please do, okay? We encourage that. We'll do a quick round of introductions. I'm Daniel Tomé. I'm the program coordinator for Engage Civic Learning, and I come from the Division for Diversity, Inclusion, and Civic Engagement down at Rutgers University, Camden. I sit on the table that is participating and hosting this out of our food security for our community learning table that's associated with REACH. My colleague, who's going to co-moderate with me.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Jennifer Apostol. I'm the director for REPLENISH, which is the Middlesex County Food Bank. I am also part of this community learning table that's presenting this session today. And I work with students regularly through Rutgers, as well as other students in the community, and with our in collaboration with many of our food pantries and social service organizations. So thank you for joining us this morning.
Thank you so much. And so because we have three different sets of presenters, we want to make sure that we're going to make this as flexible as possible. We want to make sure you feel comfortable. We're going to ask that questions wait till the end, just to ensure that time moves quickly with all of us. And so we're going to actually start today's session with asking our students to come up and to sit behind the table. Feel free to leave your stuff, all right? Yeah. And one of the things that's of our benefit is that, as we've been mentioning and it's been emphasized, is that this is about a community engaged perspective of how we do work with our students, how we do work with our community partners, and how we do work with our faculty members. In a perfect world, it's a Venn diagram. Some would say that's where the reciprocity and the reflection process is really occurring for those that are working in the community. Any other piece that you wanted to emphasize?
Yeah, it's just about experiential learning and integrating that into the academic study, and creating project-based learning outside the classroom while volunteering and supporting community organizations.
And so in many ways, when I go into classes, I usually talk about this as a Tinder experience. For those of us that have had relationships, it's either a good relationship or a bad relationship. Today we're going to highlight a little bit of it all from all three different points of views and perspectives, all right? And so why don't we get started with doing some quick introductions. And I think we have a setup question also maybe that we might want to ask them as well. But we're going to ask you all to introduce yourself, what campus you're coming from, what school you're at, what's your major, right? And then I think our first question that we're going to start you off with is, how'd you get involved? What brought you to this table, right? Who wants to start? Go for it.
Okay. So hi everyone, thank you for being here. Can everybody hear me okay? Yeah? Awesome. Okay. So my name's Leslie. I am a undergrad at Rowan University. I study nutrition and dietetics. Thank you. I think that's better. Okay. So yes, I'm an undergrad. How I got involved is answering a department email, which I heard not a lot of students do. But I was looking for opportunities. I'm in a 5-year program, so I really want to get involved in the community and do something that's meaningful to me. So just answering a job posting for a research assistantship, that's how I got involved. Yes.
Okay, hello. My name is Ayushi. I am a 5th-year architecture student at NJIT. I am also doing a minor in psychology as well as a minor in environmental studies and sustainability, which is how I got introduced to this topic. Long story short, I was taking a couple courses for the minor, and I started doing research in food insecurity, specifically starting with Newark because that's where I am right now, and slowly growing that into researching about NJFDC, and then this semester working on researching food insecurity in Edison, which is where I'm originally from. And so across academics, it's been researching food insecurity from aspects of sustainability, policy, planning, and now design and architecture. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Rhea. I'm a junior biology student. I go to Rutgers University in Camden.
And I got involved in this project through the Honors College. So there is a church near our campus. They serve lunch to the community members once a week on Fridays. So I heard about this from a fellow student, and we talked to the Father Mark, who runs the service, and decided that we wanted to make it bigger, give it more resources, and kind of work to make it more sustainable.
I appreciate the students being so quick and direct and to the point. We have another follow-up question that we want to be able to kind of expand on, which you've already helped us out with.
So, I mean, as a student, we know you have a lot to balance. So can you tell us a little bit more about how you're able to balance your coursework, your course load, any requirements that may be associated with your involvement with the community organization, so balancing your needs as well as the needs of the community organization that you're working with?
So I realized that I didn't explain what I'm working on. So the position was for a produce operations and logistics position. So my role was to fill a gap in this project where we had to transport produce from local producers in Camden, New Jersey, to a aggregator in Lawnside, New Jersey, and then that produce would then be sold to a healthcare partner, Virtua. And that produce would stay local, it would stay in the community, they would sell it on their Virtua mobile grocery stores, which is a really cool program, accessible to the community. So I was responsible for transporting this produce in my car, coolers, on Mondays. So it was a lot of fun. It was really my favorite job that I've had, apart from my current job as an FNEP educator. So, thank you, yes. What was the question?
How do you balance it all?
How do I balance it? It's hard. I think something I've learned recently is just realizing what I want my name tied to and what I want to get out of this work. So if it's not something that I'm not passionate about, then I will, realize, okay, this is not working towards my goals. Maybe I don't align with the values of whoever I'm working with. And I think that's helpful for myself and also for the people I'm working with and the community. Because if I'm not in it, I don't think they're going to get anything out of it either. I've lived in the area near Camden, so I'm very close to the people there. I know the area. I'm comfortable working there. So that was really helpful. I think also being realistic in what you are capable of doing. I was very supported by my job that I had at the time. They allowed me to schedule around my meetings that I had with Dr. Vaughn and her lab. I was able to leave work early to accommodate this new job. So being realistic, communicating your schedules with your professors and mentors and community members too, so they know what you're capable of.
So for me, my projects have been very associated with my coursework. They're usually additional projects that I'm doing for honors credit, similar to Rhea. And like Leslie said, for me, I've had courses where I'm not at all interested in what we're doing, and I'm taking it because I have to. So trying to find a way to bring this project into all of my other courses, which is kind of how my projects have been building up, have been through, I was taking a course on UX, and I was like, okay, how can I bring this project about food insecurity into a class that's going to have me design some sort of website or an app that can serve the community, and finding a way to bring that into that to make it more interesting. Or in my studio projects as an architect, how do I try and solve this issue that isn't necessarily part of my main project, but it still addresses that issue in some way, and it makes it interesting and meaningful to me. So it's more of a mental balance, I guess, of trying to bring in the things that I'm actually passionate about into something that I might not necessarily be as passionate about.
I'd say I did have a lot of difficulties. So just to provide some context, we wanted to revitalize this lunch service system. So we looked on 5 different aspects. We looked at food, making sure that there was enough food at the church and enough ingredients, making sure that there was enough volunteers and student groups coming in. And then we had a lot of different aspects to focus on, partnering up with professors, partnering with the dining hall, partnering with different departments on campus to get incentives and food drives going. And it was really, really difficult at first because there was only 2 of us working and doing all these meetings. And we did get burnt out, so we had to, like when the semester started, we had to take a step back and focus on like one aspect of our project and rely on others. So for an example, we weren't getting any volunteers coming in, and we weren't able to partner with enough groups to make sure there's at least one group coming in every week. So we decided to focus on the food aspect of it. So we decided to do food drives, which was more of like a passive responsibility, I'd say, more like meetings, more at-home work. So that was definitely a challenge we had to work on.
So based off of the descriptions that you all have offered in regards to context and talking about your balance, has the work since you've been doing it out in the community, has your own perspective changed of how you go about doing this work or how you end up engaging with the community? Okay, nods of heads, great.
Definitely. For me, my work has been a lot more research-based, but I've been having meetings with, I had a meeting with Jennifer, I had a meeting with Janine, I have had meetings with a lot of other people, and for me, I don't think I explained really what my project is, but my current project is food insecurity in Edison, but specifically, how do we give more support to the food pantries that exist, and how do we kind of combat some of the challenges that they face. So my kind of proposal was proposing 3 locations in Edison that can serve as hubs for these food pantries to get food from, but then also for a community to engage with in ways of like education, having students come to help farm, becomes a community kitchen, and it also becomes fully accessible to everybody of all backgrounds to kind of remove that like stigma of going to a food bank and, you know, making that, building that feeling of belonging. And so I was coming at it from like a design, architecture, and a little bit of a psychological aspect, perspective. And when I had these different meetings of like, hey, this is what I want to do, and I want to design this type of space that has its permanent like space for these people to congregate, it was very interesting to see like, you know, aspects from the policy side and also aspects that I probably wouldn't have thought of because it's not work that I'm very like involved with currently, like planning aspects or, you know, even just giving me insight in like, hey, this is an example of something that you're trying to do and these are the challenges that they're facing. Maybe that's something that you need to look at. Obviously, there's way too many rabbit holes to go down when it comes to something like this, you know, and I can't dip my toe into every single thing. But being able to kind of bring all of that together and then bring all of the different academic things that I'm doing and bring those together has really kind of enlightened me. And like, you know, I don't have to just think of this as a designer, as an architect. I can think of this as an urban planner. I can think of this as a policymaker. I can think of this as like a sustainability, which sustainability is very broad, but you know what I mean. But yeah, I'm hoping that like all of that kind of brings it to a point where I can continue this project and make something that's more universal.
Is this one on? Yeah, okay.
Sure is.
Okay, cool. So I learned so much from not only the community that I was working with, but also my mentor, Dr. Vaughn, just because she has so much experience working on health equity and disparities. So that really helped me have a ground level understanding of these things, but it was a completely different perspective being in the community, talking to people that are experiencing health disparities, environmental racism, all of these huge issues that is really a system-wide thing. So it was beneficial for me to get to talk to them and have a tour of their urban farm because that's where they were growing food, get to know their stories, really build these connections with people that I would not normally interact with on, you know, a campus environment. So I learned so much. I learned about resilience in community, how these people are helping not only their own families have better access to food, but also sharing that food and that knowledge with others, whether it's just inviting them over. You know, they see them looking at their beautiful urban farm, and they're like, come on, take a look, or something like that, or just giving them food that, you know, they have extra of. So I learned a lot about that. I think that's
I can definitely talk about how our perspective has changed. So in the beginning, we came and we talked to Father Mark, and we had all these ideas. We wanted to reach out to surrounding community churches and organizations, and what we learned from this is that you should really consider the perspective of the community member first, and that when you're trying to find solutions, and you should let their perspective, their opinion go before anything else, because we learned that, so for one thing, we learned that instead of reaching out to kind of like the suburban areas that were better off for help, it was better from the church's perspective to reach out to Camden. So Camden is a food desert, but it is like a very, very strong community, very resilient. And when we wanted to build this system and reach out for support, it was better to reach out to our community members and try to create like a unified support rather than creating the image of kind of helping the less fortunate, instead creating a stronger community and strengthening the bonds that we have with our community members.
Thank you. Thank you three so much. I really appreciate you kind of setting the bar for the rest of the presenters as well and kind of giving us a perspective. We're going to leave questions to the end, so I'm going to ask that our next set of presenters come up. Students, thank you all so much. Feel free to
Stay.
It's all good.
Okay, there you go. That's not me.
All right, thanks for joining us. Would you want to introduce yourselves and give a brief introduction about the organization and what you're involved with?
Okay. Is this on? Okay. Okay, my name's Diane Hutchins. I'm Executive Director of Aldersgate Outreach Community Center in East Brunswick. We're a food pantry and thrift shop. We've been around for 50 years or more, and we serve all of Middlesex County. A lot of our neighbors are coming in from New Brunswick, but we also serve East Brunswick and the surrounding community. We have about 120 to 150 families that come through our pantry during each week. We've gotten to know a lot of them over the period of time, and trying to understand what type of foods that are what they value more in their foods. We have been able to introduce fresh fruits and vegetables. We currently pick up from 2 different grocery stores. Stop and Shop in East Brunswick provides well over 1,000 pounds of food each week to our pantry. We receive fresh produce from Replenish, where Jennifer is, and we also receive regular type food, more of the non-perishables, from Community Food Bank in Hillside. So we've tried to also incorporate a full choice pantry, meaning we don't make decisions for our families and neighbors who come to us about what are they going to put on their table tonight. I break it down basically is that we don't want a bunch of old white ladies telling my Hispanic neighbor what she's going to make for dinner. So what we've introduced is a full choice pantry where we have everything out. We may limit some of the items, but for the most part, they can go and they move through our pantry. We've just reopened in a newer facility. We've also moved indoors. We're outside distribution for 3 years during the pandemic and subsequently. So they move through and they pick what they will use, the types of food, and we definitely monitor it because we want to know what do we want to replace. You know, maybe something is flying off the shelves, and maybe something is gathering dust, which tells us this is not something that somebody is wanting to feed their family. So it's a really engaging activity. We are all volunteer, and we have no paid staff. We have a core group of about 10 to 15 people that work during the week, either in the pantry or in the thrift shop. I think that covers most of it.
My name is Kayann Foster, and I currently serve as the community health worker at the County of Passaic, Department of Human Services. My prior role, however, was in a anti-hunger organization with a full choice pantry that at the time when I was transitioning away, we were serving upwards of 5,000 individuals. And in that space, I did community engagement, volunteers, which is awesome that you are all volunteer staff. But food insecurity is near and dear, only because I don't think we often realize it connects with everything else. And that's what brings me to the table. I cannot talk homelessness without food insecurity, and then we can't talk employment opportunities if you're not eating healthy, and we can't talk about how our children learn if you're not talking food insecurity. So that's what drives my passion for the work.
Thank you both so much for your detailed introductions. It kind of gives us the setup for our last panelists, our students. We want to kind of get an idea, how do you go about recruiting your student engagement? How do you go about either outreach? Are there campaigns that you end up working with your local universities or schools? Can you give us kind of an idea on how you end up advancing their own education and experience utilizing your spaces?
Okay, so we have 3 different avenues. The first one is anyone can volunteer. We work with jerseycares.org, which is an umbrella agency or corporation that works with gathering volunteers from across the state. It's got a database, whatever. We also work with private groups that want to do something for their employees. They have a work day or something, so they can come in and volunteer. Thirdly, our most important one is we have internships. And one of our internships is with the Rutgers School of Social Work. We are assigned a senior in either senior undergrad or a master's student on an annual basis. That person comes in to work with us on a daily basis or in whatever schedule works with their schedule, and understanding what the students were saying before. I applaud a student being able to balance these internships and other activities with their current course loads. So we have interns from the School of Social Work on an annual basis. They work with us just like any other volunteer would. I do have them do a couple of special projects during the year and try to meet with other groups that are interested in food insecurity. We also have a rotating list of interns that are coming from the Rutgers School of Medicine. They are third-year medical students, and it's a 5-week internship that they come in for a couple of hours each week, and they do work with primarily with our distribution line. So it gives them a sense of seeing folks outside the medical environment and in the local community, so that it gives them a better, more empathy when they are actually in practice. So those are the 3 avenues.
And similarly, We got our interns, students and volunteers the same way. Montclair State, William Patterson, Rutgers, they often reached out to say we have students who need more real-world experience or they have a passion for, and that's how we would get our interns, but any student could volunteer. We found ourselves in a neighborhood that had lots of schools, charter schools, special projects they were trying to do, recruiting. Well, at the time I was volunteer coordinator, and what I found that worked well when a group reached out, especially our students, to do a food drive. You know, the special times of year, children need to eat for Christmas and Thanksgiving. We used it as a way to pull them further into the work. It's so much more than just a few boxes of cereal or wild, and you could see the excitement as they understood that what they provided would go onto shelves and it would go to a family, and oftentimes the family would be down the street from them, and sometimes we're not able to make that connection. We get insulated, and it was great, and that was one of the great ways. And just going out constantly and engaging with students and not waiting till they're college interns to learn. And as the students were speaking earlier and talking about learning about community, community knows what community needs, and oftentimes we are not often able to be the ears. And so when the students come in, they're able to listen and hear and engage in a way that we're well-oiled machines. You know, you can't mess up the process, right? Because we're serving so many, and we don't want anyone to not be served. But when students are coming in, they have this new perspective in the space, if we allow it, to step into those areas that can be neglected. And so it was always exciting because they had that excitement. After a while, we got to get it done, and you would tap into that, and you find that they would become the advocates that went out and say, you need to come join with us. So that's what we found, word of mouth. The website engaged quite a few when schools came, going beyond the food drives, and our internships were priceless because then we had a regular, and you know that builds trust within community and those we were serving. Thank you.
All right, thank you. So can you talk a little bit about how you work with the students to fulfill any requirements that they may come into working with you, to fulfill the needs of their coursework or preparing recommendations or references or evaluations?
All of that. As you heard the students mention earlier, they're walking a very fine balance between coursework and regular jobs and being interns for nonprofits, community-based organizations, and at the same time, nonprofits, community-based, we have their operations, and how do you adjust and be flexible to fit what they need, their passions, and the requirements, those recommendations, those things they have to fill out that they've touched community, and it was hard. I'm not going to say it was not challenging, because mostly because you don't want someone to come in and they're a regular volunteer. You heard the young ladies, and they're speaking of all their passions, and you're hearing apps for community, and you're going, we need that, but we don't have the time to provide that. And so it was a delicate balance between saying, okay, we actually can use your hands day to day, but let's hear your passion, and how does that tie in with those we serve? Learning to speak to community, which is often the requirement, especially for our social work students. And what we found was you kind of had to create a framework where they walk through each portion of your operations. They had to learn everything from what it looks like on the back end to pack bags, get food into the building, to actually serving with the community, and then that allowed them to bring their passions to the forefront. Hey, when I was serving here, I saw, I noted, and lots of flexibility. Lots and lots and lots of flexibility, because within trying to balance their lives and the hours and serving the community, you had to find that maybe it was a Saturday morning that you could use their hands, or off-site, off regular hours, to say, can you do this off hours? Reach out to these individuals and ask, and lots of collaboration, constant communication. But that's how we found it worked, but it is challenging to balance. We're balancing, they're balancing, lots of communication, flexibility, and those passions. They matter because it helps you to blend and grow and give them strong impact for what they need, and have the organization also have them be such a great asset to the organization. Thank you.
I think you covered most of it. Couple of things that have been challenges for us is determining how or what experiencing the intern should have. Because when we meet with the intern for the first time, we do an interview process, and when we have an intern who's starting, we talk about how they want to schedule their hours. Because for the School of Social Work, they have to spend 15 hours per week, and this is in addition to if they have a part-time job. If they're I have a master's student now, they've got master level classes and lots of papers. So we talk about what is important to them and what areas interest them, and we try to pick projects that they either work with us on an hour for the 15 hours, or I know that I have asked the interns to do things like do some research and find out. The question from the client is, I need help with housing. I'm not getting anywhere. I make too much money. Take this, see what you can do. Let's talk to that client. And so these have been things that will take maybe an hour or two of their time. We've spent time also on learning how the food gets to the pantry. What is the cycle? How do different areas where not only do they spend time in person working with clients or neighbors in the pantry itself, but they also have some research projects that we would really like to need done so that it prepares us for better. Last year we had an intern who was into social media. And so she wanted to do things that she could post. So we tried to come up with a couple of different projects for her to be able to do that, which was helpful for us because we don't have a lot of strength in that area. So I think it's a partnership between, especially where you have an intern that's got to spend X number of hours, and you want those hours not to be spent in a room doing homework, which we understand some agencies have them do, but we wanted them actively engaged. And hopefully, I always tell the intern coming in, my job is to make you want to be in the nonprofit world and not clinical. So my job is to keep you from going in that office and having clients, but out in this world and, working for a nonprofit. Thank you.
So we're going to end with this last question. And as our students rotate in and out every year, right, there's always a new batch, but how do you both, in your work, continue to maintain the institutional relationships? Who are your key points of contact, or what departments are you engaging with to ensure that those students are going to be coming? What are those extra pieces that end up going to ensure that you continue these types of relationships?
So in the organization I was in, we were able to convince about 3 of the interns to eventually become employees. And so they were really great advocates and words of mouth for us. But what I found was there was always this one professor or this one program coordinator. There was always that one person who understood and was just as passionate about the work, and they would be kind of the point of contact, while every year the student, and it wouldn't be this mad rush when all the students needed these internship hours, and you kept them on the mailing list. You still reached out every now and then. You invited them to volunteer, and then in the process, by the time the interns are coming, we've had a conversation all year long, and it allowed us to build a better internship experience for those who were coming in. But that's what we found. Previous students who had interned with us, the ones who became our employees, and there's that one professor, core program coordinator, whoever it was that you made the connection with, and you maintained that connection. It made for so much. You knew every time this year we were going to get some students, and we had been speaking all year, so it wasn't a mad rush and a mad dash. Thank you.
We work closely with the School of Social Work with 2 or 3 different folks there. I actually went through the field service instructor class, which was fun. But it did help me get a better sense of what would work with interns and where, just thought process of knowing what all they have to do, what paperwork they have to turn in, and being respectful of the time involved. But I think that keeping those lines of communication open and being forthright. If an intern, I'm hoping that if an intern is unhappy or has issues that they're going to their person in the School of Social Work. We're very particular in when we provide a description of an intern that we would like to have, and we're very outspoken. When we get interns that are coming in for interviews, that, we had one intern last year that came in and it quickly informed us that she was not able to stand for more than 10 minutes, that she couldn't lift very much because she had broken ankles and broken wrists, and she spoke very softly. You could hardly hear her, and she had never volunteered anywhere. And she was in no clubs in high school. So we said, we don't think so. This does require certain physical abilities and certain outgoing personalities, welcoming personalities, and so they were very mindful of that. So we've been very happy. School of Medicine, same thing. Trying to be open communications at all times.
Thank you both so much for your insights.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
We invite our faculty members up for our next round. And we're going to ask our faculty members as they take a seat, just to give us an opportunity to do a quick introductions of who you are, where you're coming from, what department you're working in, and then we'll lead right into how do you all balance the work with the students and the organizations?
So good morning. So I guess it's on? Yeah? Okay. Good morning, everyone. So I'm Nicole Vaughn, and I'm an associate professor of public health and wellness at Rowan University. My background, I'm a health psychologist by training, and I've been at Rowan about 6 years, but prior to that, I taught in graduate schools, master's and doctoral programs, and then I'm the co-founder for the South Jersey Institute for Population Health, which is a grant-making organization, nonprofit, to really invigorate the southern part of New Jersey where a lot of health disparities are. So we serve from Burlington County down to Atlantic County, seeding grants that are community-based and community-engaged.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Lauren Dinour. I'm an associate professor of nutrition at Montclair State University. I am a registered dietitian. I actually am the director of our dietetics program at Montclair. I am also the faculty advisor of the Food Recovery Network chapter on our campus, which actually began as a community engaged project in my applied community nutrition course in 2017. And I also serve as the Community Engaged Teaching and Learning Scholar on our campus within our Office for Community Engagement and Partnerships, which I hope to be able to talk a little bit about.
Great. Hi, I am Cara Cuite. I'm an associate professor and associate extension specialist in the Department of Human Ecology. And I am also a health psychologist by training, although I feel like I've strayed pretty far from that at this point in my career. I do a lot of work on issues of food insecurity, especially in the city of New Brunswick, I currently run 2 fruit and vegetable prescription programs, and I work very closely with the New Brunswick Community Farmers Market on a number of different projects that they do there. And I taught the first ever, I don't know if I said, at Rutgers, New Brunswick, we have first year seminars here for like 1 credit, small classes, and I taught the first ever service learning burn seminar that also had a service learning trip built into it, which was very exciting, and it got canceled by COVID, but it was very exciting to plan it, and we're hoping to bring that back. And I work with a number of students.
So the first question was about sort of balance and
yeah,
I mean, so in my work, and Leslie described it so beautifully, like we're working in food access in Camden and in the South Jersey area, and it takes a lot of balance. It's a lot of flexibility, a lot of communication. Leslie's one of the students that I've been working with for a number of years, and I think the thing that is critical is really finding students that want to be engaged, really doing a deep dive. So as the community partners were mentioning, really finding students that have that authentic heart for wanting to do this work. And that takes some time, really making sure that myself as a faculty member or a PI on a project, that I really know the project really well and know the community partners really well to be able to really determine if it's a project that would be suited or a student can come into that project. I don't ever put a student in a position. I tell them all the time, anything I asked you to do, I've done. So when Leslie couldn't transport the carrots, because I transported the carrots. So, and it was, the community partners are like, you're out here. I was like, yep, I'm here. I went to all the sites or whatever, but it's because we have really good communication and we're all team members, right? And that communication is critical to balancing the workload of a faculty member, the workload of the community, and trying to sort of move these initiatives forward. So I think it's a tightrope, but it's really rewarding, and just to hear like all that these students are learning, all that the community can benefit from their engagement, and really sort of moving that next generation forward in really being service learning oriented and really understanding these issues really deeply, I think is really important. So
I'll also say, so for me, I teach a course that's required of all of our dietetic students, and so everyone is engaged in community engaged projects in my course. They don't have a choice, which I know can be a little difficult from sometimes from a community partner standpoint. But what I try to do is be proactive, flexible, and ensure accountability. I think those 3 things together really help balance everyone's needs, but make sure that we have the outcomes that we're looking for. So, for example, I'll meet with community partners before the semester even begins to discuss what kinds of projects are they looking for that perhaps they don't have the bandwidth for, similar to some of the things we've heard from our community partner panel, to see if maybe our students can assist in that. And really identify what that project will look like, what the deliverables will be by the end of the semester, and even come up with a week-by-week approach so that students have a roadmap for how to get from A to Z, because that can also be very daunting for students. I try to offer multiple projects per semester, some on campus, some off campus, because I know students live all over the place. And Montclair State University is a pretty large commuter campus, and so we don't have all of our students living on campus, but some do, and some don't have transportation. So we make sure that there's options. I'll have students and our community partners sign a contract at the beginning of the semester, identifying what everyone's roles are, so that there is that accountability. And I also ask that our partners offer an orientation similar, again, to what we heard about, to see the facility, to learn about all of the programs that they offer, even beyond the ones that they're going to be working in. I'll dedicate class time to the off-site work So because, again, we also have students who are working, if not part-time, full-time jobs. They are in school full-time. They are caregivers to parents, to children. They are stretched so thin as it is. So I try to make it as flexible as possible and utilize the time we have in class to this work. Have regular check-ins. Communication is so key to all of this. And I think just the critical reflection papers that I require students to write helps them also reflect on what their work is and what they might do differently as they move forward, even within the semester.
Great. I would second almost all of what you all have said, especially the need for contracts and just a really clear understanding before you bring students into any kind of community organization. That's just absolutely critical. What I would add is that it really depends on the level of the student. So I mentioned I've taught a first year seminar for students that are brand new to higher education, but I also work with medical students on the prescription produce program, and I work with PhD students and master students, and it really depends on the level of the student and the skill set of the student, what we can ask them to do. So I try to really keep that in mind whenever thinking about a project. And then the last thing I would add is that it's a lot of trial and error. I did try the first time before we had the spring break trip that got canceled. I taught the same class the year before, and I was bringing 15 undergraduates, first years, to different food pantries around the city during class time, and we realized, and they were doing like a 2-hour kind of volunteer session, and we realized that it was so overwhelming to the food pantries to have 15 students come in. It was impossible, but we needed to introduce the students to what was happening and to give them a sense of what is going on in the city. They were brand new to this, and to kind of spark their interest. So that's why we revised it for the following year to have this trip where we could do this intensive period of volunteer work, and then we had all of the folks from the different food pantries come in and just give lectures in the classroom. So it worked out better because it's just, and so anyway, the first time it didn't work out so great. The second time we fixed it, and so there's just a lot of going back and figuring out what works and what doesn't, and trying to make it better the next time.
So the next question is really more geared to what are the types of academic products that come out of this, or scholarship work that you're doing with the students and that you're including the community partners with in advancing your own academic work?
So I think that one of the things that we've done in the project that we have in Camden, where the urban growers are growing produce, and then having that produce sold back through to the healthcare system, but then comes back out to the community, is really we worked diligently, Leslie worked diligently, working on the back end operations. So really getting a real detailed system in how produce was going from one place to the other, tracking poundage, tracking price, making sure orders were going through. So we were sort of providing sort of those deliverables to keep this sort of system moving. And, in her growth and the growth of the students, now we're moving into the data side of that. So there's been a lot of work on coding the data, looking at the data, figuring out, doing literature reviews, like adding things to what we've already started. So I think that the progression from being in the community, working with community partners, talking through a lot of these issues, collecting the data, understanding now how the data has to get coded, how the data has to be analyzed, and being in those meetings, I think, have been very important for students and student learning. And so I think it's to your point too, like the different levels of students are very important in sort of seeing where they are able to grow and help them in that way.
So I see kind of the work products in a binary. I think there's the work products that I really want to make sure are going to be what the community partner is looking for, right? So I asked them, again, prior to the semester starting, what would be helpful for you? What is it that you're looking for? And oftentimes it's research, it's some sort of report with recommendations based on both best practice research as well as speaking one-on-one or in small groups with community members. And that's what the deliverables will be for my students. I've also had students create a recipe book of residents at a assisted living facility. That was what they were looking for. All of those things. So students are highly involved. In fact, they're the primary authors of these works. And that is often separate from the quote-unquote scholarly products that I am required to produce as a full-time tenured faculty member. Unfortunately, those types of items, those products don't count for me for rewards, for promotion, those kinds of things. And so I have also published in peer-reviewed journals about the community-engaged work that my students have been involved in, and whenever possible, try to write those alongside with my community partners. And if they are willing, with my students too. And again, these, for both groups, for the community partners and for the students, this is above and beyond their requirements for courses. And I know that it is a timely process. It is also a very specific type of writing. And so I try to make that as flexible as possible. And I can't always partner because I don't always have those volunteers, but when I do, it becomes a much richer project and product.
So I would second all of that and just, again, focus on the level of the student in terms of student involvement. For some students, it's critically important that they do get those peer review papers if it's a PhD student going on the job market. I found that medical students love doing posters, and I can't even keep up with the number of posters that they're doing at academic conferences, and I've never even heard of most of the conferences that they're going to, but they just, take it and run with it. Whereas with an undergraduate, we have an undergraduate poster session that we do in my department. It's a much lower stakes kind of opportunity for students to present the work that they're doing and to talk about it with faculty that they know. So really providing a range of opportunities, but always being open to having students on any paper that they've worked on, I say very upfront, again, it goes with the contracts concept, to be really clear that they're invited. And similarly on the community side, I have published with community partners, specifically the Rutgers, the former director of the Rutgers Community Farmers Market, and I have published a lot of things together. But the secret to that is that she was also a graduate student, and so it was in her interest. So it's been harder to publish with community partners because it's not in their reward structure either. But of course, sharing data with them and always bringing the work product that's helpful to them. But it's harder to as fully include them in whatever reporting is coming out. And I've also found that sometimes in the reports or papers that we're writing, we might be saying things that could be controversial or that maybe they might not want their name on that paper. They may, it's depending on if we're making policy recommendations or whatever, it can start to get tricky. So, it's really just about balancing everyone's needs, but offering opportunities whenever possible.
I think it's perfect time.
All right, thank you so much. I think at this point we'd like to invite the students and community organizations to come back up to the front and face the audience here along with our faculty so that we can take some questions and answers.
Feel free to utilize the front chairs that are available and rotate. And there's one right back there, so perfect. There you go.
Yeah.
Perfect timing.
Not playing.
Who's not?
All right.
Let's keep it on going.
Are there any questions from the audience that we can start with?
Yes. Right over there. Start with you first. Yes. And then we'll go over here.
I'm Pamela Rothfuss-Pulley. I'm a professor at Rutgers. What was so striking is that the students, I don't know if you're outliers or not, but it's remarkable that, I heard values, aligning the values, remarkable, and that's what makes life beautiful, right? You know, and you've learned that already. And part of what we want students engaging when they engage with the community, that's part of it, right? And we want to cultivate that. And so, Lauren, that for I've encountered some of these students, and they're remarkable, and their work is very thorough and great. And of course, the Rutgers students, and actually maybe even one or two Rowan. But so how do we, you know, and I heard the community organizations say that part of what they look for is this passion and drive and interest. But what about everybody else? How do we create that? How do we cultivate that? How do we build that in our students so that it's something that, you know, how do we, and your comment about the reflective journaling would be a great project to look at developing, you know, a theory around what, you know, propositional logic, what drives what is helping to create the human that is interested and curious and aligns with their values. You know, how does that work? So I guess it's more like a comment than anything else. You know, how do we have a kind of a captive audience here. You know, we have people who are very driven and believe in this work. But how do we engage the larger community and not just, you know, in food insecurity, but in you know, other types of helping and serving. You know, I'm just wondering if you have ideas about that. How do we create that so that community agencies want our students, the students are feeling empowered and energized, and you know, how do we do that?
Well, I would just say, I think that having all first-year students do some kind of service learning, you know, starting it early, requiring it of all students in some way or other, some kind of service is one way. I mean, not every student is going to be inspired by that, but we can at least give all the students who might be inspired by that the chance to find out that it's something that they want to do.
Yeah, I think, I mean, we have students that are, in our department, there's students that are nutrition dietetics, public health and wellness, exercise science, and so we, across the department, really advocate for students to have what are called professional development hours and research experiences and other community engaged experiences. And so by sort of requiring it for all the students, we want to sort of professionalize them and guide them and advise them into really spending that time learning about the profession, learning about what you're really most interested in. We'll support you. We really spend a lot of time with our students talking about what their passions are, what they're most interested in. Like, we don't want them doing things that they, as they're learning and they're figuring out and going through all these courses, figuring out, okay, what really is resonating with you? We'll help you. We'll use our networks to get you those different connections, right? We want to see you sort of blossom, and it just takes time, right? It's a lot of time really cultivating, talking to students, figuring out their interests. We don't want to put them in an organization where they're not going to be happy. We don't want the organization unhappy, right? So it's going to take that. It takes a lot of time sort of figuring some of that stuff out, but it's well worth it. I think you could see the students really get a lot out of it when they are doing what they love, and the organizations do too.
So. How about from the community organization perspective, how do you keep them from the one-off volunteers to develop them into long-term?
I think that one of the primary areas or ways of doing this is that you have to have your own team. The community person has to have their own team who is engaged and fully committed to whatever they're doing at that point in time. And I think that by having that type of mindset, and when I work with the students, I try to model the same behavior. I do have a tendency to take on a few more projects than maybe I should be doing. And so, you know, when the student is whining or telling me, oh, I can't do this, I can't do that, I say, let me give you my schedule for tomorrow. And so I think if we model the behavior that we want to see from our students, from our own volunteers too, I think that's one of the key areas that the community partner can do as far as helping the students in their internships.
We have one hand here, and then that one, and we're gonna go here, and we're gonna go there, and we're gonna go there. We're gonna start here.
All right. So there's a lot to go, so I'll try to make it brief. Good afternoon, morning, I'm not sure which one it is. Thank you so much for this important conversation. I'm from Camden James Center, and I'm also from African Link Initiative, the nonprofit organization. It's a three-part program culminates in a birthright trip to Africa for students of color. So I wanted to, this question is for Dr. Vaughn, and also potentially for Leslie. So we're doing a project in Camden, and I've seen so many videos of you, Dr. Vaughn.
Leslie's in those videos too.
So many videos, and I'm like, yes! And so it's so great to meet you in person. We are planning, we've been gifted the use of two spaces, sort of old house spaces in Camden, and we were going to make a community garden. Starting with engaging the community, ask the community, what do you see this space evolving as? So we have folks from Camden and also from Philly who are going to be donating their time to do these projects with us. And we hope to get 2 interns from Princeton this summer who are going to do the community engagement. Now, I don't have expertise in that area. I'm good at what I do, but I'm not good at that. So I wanted to kind of put it out there. Can I reach out to you, Dr. Vaughn?
Sure.
So we think they have to have an orientation and some guidance around what does that look like? What does community engagement look like? Community-centric work look like? And sort of to plot out, I think someone said maybe like the week by week, what are we doing? How are we going to get from A to Z? And I would love to reach out to you to get some expertise in that area, maybe some guidance for them for this summer project that we're launching. And then also, so thank you.
Yes,
I've already tagged you on LinkedIn. And Leslie, thank you all students for your passion. And I'm speaking to Leslie because I think you're super local in the Camden area. And Dr. Vaughn mentioned she's been working with you. So looking for a youth perspective, a student perspective, to also help orient our students to say, what am I going to expect? They may be first year, second year, we don't know what the students who want to sign up for our internship, what years they'll be in or what experience they'll have, but I think it'll be super valuable to have a voice that says someone who's been doing this work for some time, what to expect, how not to burn out, where are your values, how are they connected to the work that you're doing in the community, and to help them really set them up for success. So I would love to be able to reach out to you as well to help give your voice to this project.
I would love that, yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you for the time.
I love it. Next you're going.
Oh my gosh.
All right.
Oh no. Let me grab you some water.
Viola? That's you. Yep.
Oh, great. Well, I guess this is for students, but also I think for the nonprofit partners, I work for a nonprofit, and for the faculty. I know some of you spoke about working for credit and some or working, solely mostly to further academic ends, and others also receiving compensation. And I'm really just kind of opening it up to all of you. We struggle with kind of like the equitability of needing assistance all the time and wanting to draw on, we're in Newark and we have a big student population there, but unless we have kind of worked, we often are not on the same timeline as students. So what has worked out really well is the Rutgers summer service internship. It's Rutgers is paying students, they can come in, I don't have to have designed a whole program and gotten a grant to pay somebody, but just kind of offering up that question, because I know that students need assistance while they're in school.
I'm glad we brought that up because I didn't bring it up earlier. But yes, I think it's really important to pay students and have them not only get something, valuable out of the work, but like you said, we are balancing a lot of work. And I don't want this to sound like, I'm cash grabbing or something like that, because it's not. But it's really important, especially when you're looking at students that are from, marginalized communities that already are at they're not valued as much in my opinion. So I've been really glad that I got to meet Dr. Vaughn and have this opportunity to be paid for my work, but also having flexibility where, it's remote, so it's helpful there too. Just not only paying for mileage too. There's so many other things you could think of. So thank you for bringing that up. I don't know if anyone else.
We would love to be able to pay our interns. But so far, as I said, we're an all-volunteer agency. And so what we have been doing on an annual basis is that at the end of the year, we've been giving a gift a financial gift at the end of their term. We would hope to in the future be able to do more, but we're thankful that that we've been able to have interns in at no cost to us. Anybody else?
We're gonna go here.
Yeah, you actually kind of stole my question. I'm a student intern right now at Montclair Community Farms, and I'm only able to do that because it's through the AmeriCorps program I work through. So I get a stipend. If I didn't have that, which is not very much money, it's like $11 an hour or something like that. But if I didn't have that, I would not be able to do any volunteer work whatsoever because I support myself financially by working other jobs, and I'm also in school. So I think finding ways, however you guys have been and continue to do in the future, to support students financially so that people who are coming from lower income backgrounds have these really valuable opportunities to work out in the community and do volunteer work is so important. I don't know also the AmeriCorps program has different service sites that they work at, and that could maybe be something that people look at as a way to fund students a little bit, get them a stipend. I'm just throwing that out there because that's how it worked for me.
So those are in Rutgers, Camden, or
Yeah,
you're going to talk about
the St. Paul's project I was talking about, it wasn't an AmeriCorps site, but once I got interested and I talked to the program director and I enrolled in the AmeriCorps program, then they said that this certainly does count for hours and is super flexible. So you can choose a site that isn't even established and it will count.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought forth AmeriCorps because that's how I ended up at in my previous role. It was an AmeriCorps position, and I think it was paying less than what you guys get now. But it did give me an opportunity to step into a space I'd always been fascinated by and get paid. So I can only imagine trying to balance and still live. And I think we do the students a disservice when they're having to split their brain between survival and I need to survive, and they're not able to engage their full passion. If we could get them their whole mind in the work, I think what they're able to accomplish in those short internships, even the unpaid, if they were able to really be valued and compensated that way, their value what they would give, oh my gosh, I'm excited. I would love to see that happen for you guys.
It's one of my favorite topics. What I do for a living is getting our students paid. At Rutgers Camden, we have multiple opportunities for students. So those are in South Jersey. We can pay our students if they don't have an internship that doesn't have an opportunity to get paid. Or our public health AmeriCorps program is able to do not just Camden, but the region and the area. We're going to do the last question, and then we're going to do final words from Denise Rosser.
Sure. Sorry. Hi, everyone. I'm Ricardo. Thanks for the presentation. I have two quick questions. One of them is for the faculty, because I know y'all are tenured. So this wasn't overnight from last year. And I'm just trying to figure out how long it took you to build these community relationships strong enough that you were able to get contracts in place and all this structure. And then also, since y'all say you try to engage with writing with your community, just to get that idea for myself, I guess I'm trying to figure that out. How do you get folks involved that aren't associated with your institution, especially seeing the data and such? Is there only portions of it, or is that a whole process with your IRB?
Well, our IRB at Rutgers has changed it and made it easier to have community members be official project partners. So if they were, if you are working with community partners on data, they would need to be on there. But I would go back to what I said earlier about, like, it depends really on what their interests are. So most community partners aren't necessarily interested in co-writing. I mean, so we always try to share out our data and engage them around the data, but they may not want to be as deeply involved. So, but it can be challenging. Even just, I mean, there's so many challenges, like having software and just the skill set. And actually, I was at a thing on Wednesday morning where someone at Rutgers Newark said that they actually train community members to be researchers, which I was really intrigued by, so that they can be better partners in these projects. I've been busy with this conference, but next week I'm following up with that person to find out how does that happen and what does that look like, because I think that would be amazing. Because I think there's interest, and there's certainly, no one knows these programs better than the people that are running them, and no one can understand the data better. So, but it's challenging. That's what I would say.
Ricardo, I think for your first question, I don't do this alone. I don't build these relationships alone. I am very lucky to work on a campus, as you know, where we have the Office for Community Engagement and Partnerships, which, among other things, does outreach to Patterson and Newark and Orange and Clifton and Montclair and all the other surrounding neighborhoods, and has those relationships that they know what I teach. And so they actually help connect me to potential community partners, and we talk about it. And sometimes there are projects there, and sometimes there aren't. Or sometimes we come back, a few years later, something comes up. And so I really tap into that resource, and many faculty do. At the same time, I also do build some of my own relationships just from my own personal networks. But so I just want to put that out there, that I am not a one-man show, one-woman show, I should say. And then to the second question, yes, IRB can get tricky when working with non-academic folks. I don't know that we have a community training program, which also sounds amazing. I'd love to hear more about that. But we do offer the city training, which is the requirement for an IRB, the Institutional Research Board, around human subjects. We do offer that to community members free of charge. And so that is the necessary step in order to be part of our IRB applications. It is an onerous process, particularly if you're not in that world, but it is something that we offer.
Yeah, similarly at Rowan University, we offer the city training for free for community partners, and it's quite onerous for community partners to actually go through all the modules and get their certificates. And we had one project that the staff was changing at the organization, and we were, having different people that kept getting added to the IRB, and by the time we got it all the way through, the project sort of died on the vine because it just took so long just trying to get, which is understandable, right? We're adding another piece to their already very demanding jobs. In terms of partnerships, so the work that I've built at Rowan has probably been in the last 6 years, so probably in the first, before that I was doing a lot of work in Philadelphia and then in Washington, D.C. area, but it's a lot of time sort of really talking with people, understanding the work, understanding where the need is, understanding where the gap is, really to build the partnership where you have a really good understanding of what needs to sort of get done. We at Rowan just had, in the last couple years, a partnership with Virtua Health System, which is the largest health system in South Jersey, and so now we're the Rowan Virtua Health College, and that partnership has been really, really exciting because we're now able to do a lot of things jointly with our Virtua partners. We're able to share data between our partners. Virtua is very welcoming of our students and their learning and providing opportunities for internships. So we're looking to see that grow over time. And then finally, our sort of trajectory in research is increasing. We have a really robust undergraduate research program that we've been building out over the last few years. The dean is really in pushing for funding for students. And then every grant that I write, I'm putting students into it. Mileage for students. Like I just sent an email to the dean like, hey, we're up here talking about research. Like, students are gonna need the mileage. Like, start working on the travel portal or whatever. But it's just, it takes time, which a lot of us don't have, but it makes the projects that much better if you sort of spend the time. So, and then your second question about sort of getting other people sort of involved, again, they would have to go through that process and see sort of where their skill set sort of fits in, if it's the right project, there's a new project that they would want to work on, and then go through that process to get onto the project.
If I can also just add, sorry, one more thing. There are ways to engage community partners without them having to be involved in the IRB process. And I think the best way to do that is to work with your IRB to identify what types of access community members might need in order to write, as well as your own methodology. So I used autoethnography in a paper that I co-authored with a community partner, and she did not need the city certification because she was the one generating her own data. So there are ways, right, around it. Yeah.
Thank you so much.
We're going to do Denise because we're going to close this.
So, first of all, I just want to thank all of you as panelists. I'm putting on my hat here as the PI for REACH because what you have described is exactly what we are attempting to do with this project. With a couple of added things in addition to giving away grant money, we want to make it easier for faculty to get promoted and tenured for doing community engaged scholarship. This becomes incredibly important and is difficult in just about every institution around the country. We want to find ways to make it easier for students to be engaged in the community appropriately, as well as finding ways to have that money so that you can support your travel and the like. And then we're also working on creating a database that will include sort of faculty who are involved in certain areas of the social determinants that I described earlier, as well as community-based organizations who may be willing and interested in partnering in all of this. The last thing, though, that I want to say is that my own personal goal, and this is me talking to me personally, is to also make sure that we educate students that it doesn't have to be this way. That we could live in a country where people are not hungry. That, we spend so much time sort of fixing at the edges and not getting at the root of the problem. And so I want all of you to also become ambassadors with me in talking about the fact that we can eliminate poverty in the United States. We have enough money and enough resources in this country to do that. And if we eliminate poverty, we will eliminate hunger in this country. And so let's not forget that aspect of our work as we take care of the day-to-day. So thank you for letting me say my
So much. Please feel free to walk out. Walk downstairs.
We have lunch and the poster session.
Poster session.